Squire Phillips, and Miss Helen Dury, daughter of the first commanding officer. Also in April, Field Marshal Montgomery inspected the Guard of Honor at Upper Canada Column. Colonel Strathy presented to the Board of Governors the doors to the new wing of Upper Canada College. This marked the affiliation of the college cadet battalion and the Queen's Own, which was first established in 1866. Field Marshal Montgomery officially opened the doors. Lieutenant Colonel Bickford, officer commanding the 3rd Battalion, in traditional rifle fashion, received the guests at the Rifles Ball. One section of the ball was held at the Royal York Hotel, the other at the castle so closely tied in with the history of the Queen's Own, Casa Loma. Field Marshal Montgomery greeted ex-commanding officers at the Centennial Reunion Dinner at the Royal York. Some 1,200 guests attended. The Field Marshal gave one of his forthright addresses, and at its conclusion received a standing ovation.
Why are you wearing our tie? And I said, I'm not wearing your tie. It's very similar. I'm wearing the tie of the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada.
The church parade on Sunday, May 1st, was held at St. Paul's Anglican Church, for many years associated with the regiment. Represented in the parade were the 1st and 3rd Battalions, the cadet contingent, a large turnout of veterans, and representatives from the Buffs and the 60th. Field Marshal Montgomery, Colonel Strathy, and Major General Sparling laid the first 3 wreaths at the Cross of Sacrifice. An overflow congregation of some 1,300 attended the service. Following the service, Field Marshal Montgomery, attended by Archdeacon Swanson and a number of political, civil, and military dignitaries, crossed to the saluting base opposite the church for the march past. Meanwhile, in Calgary, a reenactment of the march of the Battleford Relief Column took place. The start was at Swift Current, when Mr. George Perks, V.C., Minister of National Defense, inspected a Guard of Honor. The bugle band headed the parade through town. The column, commanded by Major Hobbs, was accompanied by the museum in trucks. The column proceeded to Kyle. The mayor was presented with a commemorative plaque. This ceremony was repeated at other communities along the route. Everywhere, the troops were given a rousing welcome. Many citizens visited the museum exhibits under Captain Smits. Army food, like Army customs, has an enduring tradition. A cairn at Battleford was unveiled on the 6th of July by Mr. and Mrs. Price, Mrs. De Geer, and Mrs. Skelton, all of whom were in the stockade when Otter relieved Battleford in 1885. Using the same route taken by Colonel Otter, the column proceeded to Poundmaker Reserve at Cut Knife Creek. After the initial ceremonies, the local chiefs inspected the troops. A medallion was presented to each chief. Chief Favell was presented with a picture of Chief Poundmaker. Following the presentation, a general fraternizing took place. Sergeant Riel, 1st Battalion, a grandson of Louis Riel, was made Chief Peacemaker. An Indian dance followed. Some of the troops in this finale of the Battleford reenactment attempted to imitate the peculiar posturing shuffle of the dance. The scene shifts to the 2nd Battalion in Germany. Princess Alexandra, Colonel-in-Chief of the regiment, arrived at Gütersloh on the 7th of July. She was greeted by Brigadier Cameron, Colonel Strathy, and Lieutenant Colonel Wilkinson, commanding officer of the 2nd Battalion. A drizzling rain set in the day of the inspection. Nevertheless, everything went as scheduled. The Colonel-in-Chief took the salute and inspected her battalion. The battalion marched by at ceremonial rifle pace in column of companies. Then at the double in close column of companies. and finally in column of route. The feu de joie was a miracle of precision. The military band was that of the Royal Canadian Dragoons. C Battery, 1st Regiment, Royal Canadian Horse Artillery, provided the artillery part of the ceremony. After the advance in review order and the Royal Salute, Colonel Strathy made a short address and then presented the Colonel-in-Chief with a diamond-set platinum brooch, a gift from the regiment. Her Royal Highness replied graciously. 3 cheers were given, and the great day was over. Following the day's ceremonies, an official photograph was taken of the Colonel-in-Chief, Princess Alexandra of Kent, with her officers of the 2nd Battalion, Queen's Own Rifles of Canada. As part of the 100th year anniversary celebrations, some members of the 2nd Battalion visited the Normandy beaches and retraced part of the route taken by the 1st Battalion during World War II. Typically, their first engagement was with the local gendarme. A landmark of special significance was the old railway station at Bernières-sur-Mer. Getting a thorough inspection by Major Dibber, Captain Buxton, Lieutenants Wherry, Fowler, Richardson, and Captain Cross was this historic location at Bernières. Rifleman Stewart and Lance Corporal Macomber chat with 3 local residents of Bernières, reliving the story of liberation by the Queen's Own on June 6, 1944. Midway between Bernières-sur-Mer and Caen lies a cemetery. Here are interred the Queen's Own Rifle comrades who fell on D-Day. A side visit to the trenches of Vimy Ridge was taken by a party of other ranks from the 2nd Battalion. An absolute must on any visit is the remarkable Canadian Memorial at Vimy Ridge. Here members of the 2nd Battalion mounted sentries and paid homage. A group of NCOs visited the grave of Sergeant A. Cousins, a member of the Queen's Own Rifles 1st Battalion and winner of the Victoria Cross. A fitting climax to the overseas anniversary celebrations was the depositing of the memorial drum in the Warriors' Chapel, Canterbury Cathedral. Colonel Strathy made the presentation on behalf all the parades, functions, demonstrations, presentations, and visits of the anniversary year amply demonstrated the vivid history and contribution of the Queen's Own Rifles throughout its existence.
to the profession of medicine, to the men and women who labor in its cause.